we're going to be working on control issues basically, but it's called Sphere of Influence. And I believe it started out as a coaching concept for some reason, like lots of business coaching and marketing coaching has picked up on it. So it's hard to find information online that covers the aspects of this that I want to cover, so I'm making my own video. You in particular, not your system, you are in the center of this diagram. Here, we'll make sure that's a little bit more explicit. That's you. And you have control over a certain amount of things, sometimes physically close to your body. That's why the circles kind of look like this. But, it can be, you can remote into your bank account and transfer money. So that would be, something you have control over. So all of the things that you directly have control over would be in this green area. So we're going to call that control. You can split up all of the things that you're worried about, basically, into these three areas. The things you can control, my expectations, right? Then there are the things you cannot control. Let's say, Buck cursing. This is my sphere of influence. Is in this area. So in this red circle are all of the things outside of myself and outside of my control, but that I may have some influence over. Buck and I have a relationship. If Buck is cursing and I don't think it's appropriate, I can say, hey, Buck, why are you doing that? He might calm down, he might stop cursing, he might find alternative words, and he might not, and it's not really under my control. So headmates are people that I can influence, but I don't have control over. Same thing with externals. My children. My children are 25 and 23, and I do not have a whole lot of control over them, and I really don't have any influence over them while they're in this particular phase. I don't even have a whole lot of influence over them, but I do have some. So basically, this is kind of a boundary system in some ways. Like there's the boundary between me and Buck, and so on. This is kind of where the idea of passive influence comes in terms of plural systems, where when Buck is fronting, I might be able to sneak a little bit of behavior over into his domain. Yesterday we were on a coaching call, Buck had something to say, and it influenced what I said, and then I realized that was Buck, like, pushing it at me to say it. It wasn't, like, explicit, like, hey, why don't you say this? It was kind of like, he said it, but he said it in such a way that it influenced what I was saying. That's passive influence. He's not in front. I have control over the body, but somehow, even though he's back there, he made me do something. So that's passive influence. That's where the boundary gets a little fuzzy. So, perhaps Buck has a little bit of this. That's Buck's sphere of control. A little bit overlapping into my sphere of control. So that's where, like, things get a little weird for plurals. But even within plural life and plural systems, we still do have these three different areas. So I have less influence over externals. I can cajole, I can explain, I can make my case, I can pressure, I can threaten, I can coerce. This whole list of, manipulative, sometimes for good and sometimes not for good behaviors. When we debate somebody, it's still manipulation. We're not allowing them to make a decision without additional facts that we're trying to press on them. So influencing others, it takes skill and it takes time. I'm going to make a note here. I want to talk about social capital, so I'll explain those in a moment. There's what I can control directly. There's this wiggly area because we all share the same body and the same brain hardware, where people within the same body can have some influence over each other. That's kind of wiggly. And then there's all those people in another body that I have even less control over. So I can influence them, the people near me, the people close to me. And then there's all the things that are entirely outside of my control, but that I might that might influence me, that might affect me and my life, those are the things in my circle of concern. Let's put it up here. So we have the things I can control, the things I can influence, and then outside of that, the things that might concern me, but I don't really have any control over them. And then, I'm going to find a glowy thing. Outside here, this is everything else. That's like football. I am neither concerned nor influenced, nor do I have any control over, say, who wins the Super Bowl. Unless it's going to cause a riot, I don't care. So everything else is out there. The Super Bowl is like way out there. Give no shits. Okay. Thank you, Buck, for the language. I was looking for the words. Go back to my black marker. Okay, so what is it within my sphere of concern? Because I can only really talk about my perspective, but maybe other people share these concerns as well. So, the virus. All right, we were talking about coronavirus 19, or whatever official name it goes by. COVID-19 is the disease that it causes, but there's the virus. Whatever it is. Okay. So the virus concerns me to a great deal. Like, my extended family, like who's going to get sick? Might somebody get so sick they end up in the hospital? Have I lost anyone? I'm like one person removed from people who have gotten, well, I know a couple of people who have gotten severely ill and possibly even end up in the hospital, but I know no one in my first level sphere of external people has gotten this and died to my knowledge. But I know people who have had loved ones die. Just fact of life. You know, it's out there, it's in our sphere of concern, but I have no control over a virus. I can't even talk to a virus to influence it. What I can influence, see, this is where this is becoming a self-help tool. Okay, so everything up to this point, it's like, it's there. This is just a fact. We have these different levels. But what I can do about it is where we get into kind of the self-help, self-improvement area is, well, I can't control the virus, but I can influence things like my exposure. Now I can control where I go. So where I go. What I have less control over is whether or not the people that I see when I go or the places that I go have a viral load that I might be exposed to. So I make my choices. I have control over my choices in where to go. There are some things, though, I can only influence. People I share housing with in my building are not always masking. I can influence them, or actually even control whether or not they can come into my apartment without a mask on. I can wear a mask when I go outside of my apartment because I know they're not masking, things like that. So I control where I go. I can control how many people I see, but I cannot control whether or not they've been exposed. But I can try and see safer people. So see safer people. Go early. If I have to go to a store or check my P.O. box, I can go early, and that's kind of an influence. I can't control whether or not I'm still getting exposed, but I can make sure I'm getting exposed less. So I have some influence over my exposure when I go to a place that I know people are enforcing masking. I can go on the early side after they've cleaned or it's sat overnight. When the place just opened, less people have been there, so go early, and so on. So that's what I can control, what I can influence, and what I'm concerned about. So there's a lot of things we can put into these various areas. I'm just going to rattle off some so that you get an idea. The things that go into your circle of control include your actions, your choices, and your strategies, your presentation, how you come off, how you act, how you behave, how you hold yourself, to what degree you mask, and so on. That would go into your presentation, how you present yourself to others. Your opinions, your vote, those are entirely within your circle of control. Of course, with the caveat that if you're going to vote in an external election, that your body only gets one. So now you might have to have a whole big debate inside your head about who you're voting for. Hopefully you all agree on your voting choices and it's not a fight between, headmates as to who to vote for outside of your body. But within your body, you have your own vote, your reactions, and your mood. How I react to the virus that I have no control about. So even though there's the virus, I have my reaction. Maybe I should have put that the other direction, but whatever. And sorry about how sloppy my handwriting is. I'm writing with a stylus on a screen. It's not always the meh, So your reaction, your mood. Now, normally we're taught that our mood is outside of our control. There's a certain amount of emotionality. And we're plural, so we'll add that in. But our emotionality is some chemical and some attitudinal or mental, or like the thoughts we think affect our mood. Our mood affects our chemicals affect our mood. It's this big recycling symbol of influences going around and around in circles. Thoughts, hormones, and neurotransmitters. And emotions. And let's call this all mood. It may not be, but it's close enough. This whole thing is mood. And this is the catch-22 of mood. So, what happens? You think your thoughts. That causes hormones and neurotransmitters to release. Some of them are the same. So some neurotransmitters are also hormones and go around your whole body. Some of them stay within your brain and just bounce around in your brain. But same the other way around. Some body systems will release hormones. Those are also neurotransmitters, and they get up to your brain through your bloodstream, and they trigger reactions in your brain. So that's why they're both there. Endocrine system and so on. Anyway, so those hormones and neurotransmitters create emotions, what we perceive from this big mood diagram. So what we think can influence our emotions or hormones. What we feel, what our emotions are, can affect our thoughts or our hormones. And our hormones can affect our thoughts and our emotions. So, when we have a mood cycle we want to change, so say we have anxiety, pretty common, our thoughts may be creating the anxiety, the hormones and neurotransmitters may be creating the anxiety, or the emotions may be creating it. So it started somewhere in here. What is the point of entry? It doesn't really matter. Once it's engaged, this becomes the chemical thought, attitude, emotion cycle. And we just keep churning between these. Because these two things are acting on our thoughts become anxious. Because these two things are influencing our emotions, we get more anxious. Because we're getting more anxious mentally and emotionally, our body is releasing more hormones. And it just keeps going. So somewhere in here, we have to start breaking the cycle. So we can either change our emotions or change our thoughts, or the drug companies want us to change our hormones and our neurotransmitters. And these are all valid. Any point where we can break this cycle helps. So we get a lot of help from our therapist on our thoughts with cognitive behavioral therapy, right? We get some help with our emotions sometimes through more or less the same things. I don't know, changing our attitude, changing our focus. It might seem like it's thoughts, but sometimes it comes in at the emotional level, like gratitude. We have a grateful thought, but it's only if you feel gratitude. You don't have to think about it. You can just feel grateful. Somebody does something nice for you. You don't have to talk about it or think about it. You can just feel it. So feeling gratitude is a love hormone. And then you get oxytocin. I can't spell right now. So you have to feel love. You have to feel like a hug. Right? And if you get that hug feel, it releases oxytocin. The hug feel and oxytocin. That becomes a neurotransmitter. Whoop. So it's a hormone. If you get a hug or you feel it from your heart has oxytocin. So you feel it from your heart and the flood of hormones comes out of your heart. When it reaches your brain, it makes for happy brain. And then happy brain makes for better thoughts. It starts cleaning up your thoughts so that you're less anxious. That's kind of why I say that you can control, quote unquote, control your mood. You have to learn how, but you can do it. You can control your reactions, you can control your mood, you can control your intentions, what you want to do, what you're planning to do. You can control your expectations, like what you think it's going to come out to in the end. Your dreams and desires, like the big picture stuff, and the little picture stuff, your focus, your projects, your goals, your plans, you can work on those too. So those are all within your control. You can control whether or not you get a new pet. You cannot control whether or not that new pet is potty trained, that kind of thing. Influence. The things that we can influence are communications. That's between headmates or external. I'm sorry, did I say control? The things we can influence are our communications, our acquaintances, co-workers, headmates, friends, family. We can influence elections. I mean, it's one however many of how many people vote, but it's still an influence. We can influence local politics even more. You can write to local politicians, you can pick up the phone and call their office, and the more micro you get, like the smaller the scale, the more influence you have. Like I can get in touch with, say, my mayor's office. It's not an extremely big city, so, the chances that they're getting a phone call at any particular moment, I don't know. So I could probably pick up the phone and make whatever commentary I needed to and possibly influence something in government locally. You have influence over your body. Your body is like another headmate, so you don't have full control over it, but you have a lot of influence over it, and more than just passive influence if you're fronting. And you have influence over your successes and outcomes. Depending on how much within your control the circumstances are, you may have more or less influence over your outcomes and your successes. But most people's successes and outcomes involve things outside of their own head. And like how do I put this? Like, if I have front and I'm working on an external project, at that moment I have pretty much all of the control over it. But because we're plural, we may switch. I may get a phone call. Somebody might knock on the door. There's like a lot of things that could happen that would interrupt me completing the project and being successful. So I don't have 100% control over it, but I have significant control over whether or not I complete the things I set out to do. It's a here and now problem, actually, because success and outcome is time dependent, and over time there may be more interruptions of my control. So that's why it's considered an influence thing. Sorry, I don't know if I made that clear. Okay, things outside of that, what laws there are. Some of them were made even before we were born. Some of them we might want to fight to change. That might be an influence issue, depending on how much clout we have and so on. But laws, the virus, this is funny. In-laws, I don't really have any right now. I have a lot more influence over a partner than I do their parents. They're usually out here. They have the ability to impact your life, your loved ones, and so on, which will influence you. But you're not in much of an influence position with them. Some people might be. And if you are, then your in-laws would be in the center, in the red area. Things that go on in my area. Those would be of concern to me, but I might not have control over them or influence. And so on. So, what you can do is you can make yourself a piece of paper, or you can print out one that I provide. But you can make 3 circles like this on a piece of paper, and like on the side somewhere. It doesn't matter that it says everything else out there, although you can put things out there. But on the side or on a scrap paper, write down all the things you're concerned and worried about. All the things that keep you up at night or whatever. Like, write down things. Don't trigger yourself. You don't have to write the things that are very triggering, but things in the here and now that are bugging you. And then you can come back to this chart and figure out, where do they go? Is it control, influence, or concern? The things that you're concerned about, you can't really do anything about. So putting your energy, you want to put low energy here. You don't want to put time, effort, energy into concern unless you're an activist. But, even then that would be kind of like control, influence. That wouldn't be concern. Concern would be what's going on at the UN. Okay, I am an activist, I'm an advocate, but I don't have any influence at all over the UN at the moment. I'm working on it. But, no, I'm just kidding. But, Buck's not kidding. Okay, passive influence. So, that cracked just enough. So, guys, stop. Where was I? I don't have a lot of influence over the UN. So we'll put the UN out in concern. But what's going on at the UN? Maybe I'm worried about it. That would be why UN would end up out here. Or maybe I'm concerned about a law that's being put on the books. Like, corporate personhood pisses me off, pisses Buck off. Anyway, corporate personhood would be a law that concerns us. And so on. So, yes, we're right here. Thank you, Justin. Okay. So you make this list and you try to parse out your different things and put low effort and low energy into the things within your circle of concern. Put most of your energy, time, efforts in your area of control, and a moderate amount of time, effort, energy, and stuff in your sphere of influence. Now, that's just a guideline. That's not a hard and fast rule. One way of managing your spoons is putting most of your spoons on the things that you can control, less of them in the things you influence, and little to none in your area of concern. Take the power and the energy away from these things that are way out there that you don't really have control over. That's one of the reasons to do this, is to balance, okay, balancing your spoons. The first thing would be a list, categorize it in the circles, and then you would basically decide where to put your time and energy. The other reason to do it is so that maybe you can pull back some of your worry and concern about those things. So pull back some of your energy and your thoughts and your anxieties from that concern circle. Pull it towards you. Pull back in that energy, the time, the thoughts that you're having about that area. So I'm going to default to the virus. It may be a touchy subject for some people, but it's probably safer than me fishing in the dark for something else that might be triggering. It's fairly recent, so hopefully it's not too triggering yet. Maybe later when people watch this, but all right. We're concerned about the virus, but on terms of the global scale of the virus, we can't be too concerned about it, but we can watch for patterns. We do spend a decent amount of time looking at news on it, so we inform ourselves. We called it that the UK mutation, whatever, was going to be here in the United States already, and they just found out it was here in New York. The fact that there is a more infectious, this is what it looks like anyway right now, is that there's a more infectious South African variant. It's probably here already too. It's in the UK already. People from the UK come here. It's even more contagious, or seems to be. I mean, by the time somebody's listening to this, they may know more about this than we do now. But it looks like it's more infectious. People from the UK have been here, and the other countries that it's already gotten to. So the likelihood that it's here in New York, in the United States, of all places in the United States, certainly New York, is pretty good. So it's probably here already, probably already spreading. So I've decided to stay home, right? I've pulled that energy, like I've gotten the information I need for my circle of concern. And now I'm figuring out how it works in the things that I can control and influence. So I talk to my partner, because I have influence, talking about these things, that it's probable that both the UK and the South African variants of this virus are here in the United States, that maybe we should be curtailing our activities. I try to role model how I shop, because they've been going to stores, and I've moved at least some of my going to stores to pick up, like curbside pickup. So I role model I cross my fingers and toes. I hope they listen. They don't. I keep going. But when they do something that I think is too risky, it's like, no, I can't see you for 2 weeks, and things like that. So, I do what I can without trying to be manipulative or coercive. And that's my action plan. My action plan is to continue to role model good stuff. If I get frustrated, I talk to somebody else who is even more strict about things than me, so that I can vent and I don't necessarily vent about my partner, but just vent about my concerns about the risks and what people are doing and people who aren't masking properly and things like that. I'll take the time to vent, and that's something in my influence and in my control. I can talk to somebody appropriate about the things that bug me, so that I'm not forcing my ideas on somebody because they're already as stricter than I am. So, if I'm venting to them about people not being strict, I'm not shaming somebody, I guess. So pulling back the energy, the thoughts, and the anxieties from concern to goals that you can control. So that's what I do. And so that becomes an action plan. So when you're in that big circle of concern, and there's something that's really bugging you, the best thing to do is figure out how you have control over that. What control is there that you do have? The stock market. Okay. I know not many people watching this are in the stock market. And if you are, great, good on you. I'm not. I've never played the stock market. But let me give you an example anyway. Let us say I was playing the stock market right now. I've been riding the Bitcoin wave. It went way up. I'm happy. I've made money. I have a choice. Do I stay in or stay out? I can't control whether or not Bitcoin starts dropping, which it started to do at the beginning of this week, but I don't know where it is now. I'm not really watching it. I just see the headlines as I'm scrolling in the news. So is Bitcoin going to continue to fall? That's out of my hands, right? If I were invested in Bitcoin, this is entirely out of my hands. I have no direct control over it. A lot of people saw it go up. They figured it's not going up anymore. They're selling it and the price is dropping. That's just the way the stock market works. Do you get out while you're still ahead? Or do you hope that maybe people will change their mind? It's starting to dip down. I'm going to start buying whatever, and then it'll start going up again. So what I can do about my concern about my stock is make the decision about whether to stay in or out. Stay in or get out of that stock. That would be within my control. So I take that concern, the anxiety, the whatever, I need to put it somewhere. Anxiety is energy. And it needs focus. Anxiety is energy without focus. I'm concerned about this thing. What the heck am I going to do about it? Make a plan. And that plan should be something in your control, or possibly within your influence. Maybe I need to have a discussion with my stockbroker. I'm assuming if I have enough money to have stocks, I have enough money to have a stockbroker. I don't know if that's true. Maybe I've been watching Motley Fool and, Fool.com and listening, watching the news and whatever, and I don't have a stockbroker, but whatever, Anyway, so circle of influence. I don't have influence over my stockbroker. I don't know what he's going to say to me, and I don't know if he has correct information, but we can talk to each other and he can influence me. I can allow it to influence me. Because I'm in his or her circle of concern. I'm in their circle of concern. That's even better. I'm in their circle of concern. check categories. Right. Okay, so check the categories, right? Categorize stuff. Develop an action plan. Now, acceptance. Okay, there are going to be some things out there in the circle of concern that we're just going to have to accept. I don't want to accept that there's a virus out there, but it doesn't do me any good to try and imagine it away and behave as if it doesn't exist, like some people are trying to do. I can't sweep it under the rug. No matter what my opinion is about the virus, I'm not going to be able to influence the virus. It is not listening. It doesn't have ears. Wars. I can despise war. I can be an activist against war. I can speak up about war. I can try not to put money into the war machine, and so on. But I have very little influence over whether there are wars and who the wars are between and how those wars turn out. There are people who have influence over that, but I'm not one of them. So, to some degree, if I spend all that emotional energy on the war, then I'm just driving myself up a wall without cause. I mean, there's plenty of cause to be bothered by it, but what can I do about it? So we're back to this, but allowing it to have undue influence over my life or over my concerns or energy or anxiety, I think people should be concerned about war. I'm trying to find the right words for this. I am definitely concerned about war. But if I work myself into a lather trying to figure out a way to influence a war on a global scale, on a large, between an international scale or a global scale, trying to influence a war, that's way over my pay grade. It's over my head. But if there were a protest in my local area, and we'll talk more about this one soon. Let me see. When we talk about your sacred cause in week 3, we're going to be going directly at the heart of circle of concern and what we can do about it. But if there's a local protest, I can join the local protest. I could send money to Amnesty International or some other peacemaking organization. There are things I can do to influence, say, refugee rescue efforts or whatever. There are possibilities of influence on a tiny scale against this big thing. But, yeah. So we will talk more about that when we talk about the sacred cause thing. And this is long enough. It's 40 minutes. So, I was going to talk about the emotional bank account and social capital. Oh, that deserves it. Alrighty, green. Let's go for green here. So the emotional bank account and social capital. I know these are stuffy words. Emotional bank account is between you and your sphere of influence. When you do things, when you allow somebody in your sphere of influence to influence you, when you do nice things for them, when you have good feelings, when you do favors for each other and so on, you build up positive balance in your emotional bank account. You have good faith, you have love, you have like happy times together, you share experiences, you share interests, you do projects together. All that stuff builds up a positive balance in this bank account. But these are the things we influence, right? If we start trying to control, manipulate, cajole, debate, argue, manipulate, force, blackmail, etc., all the way down those lists of not so happy interactions we can have with external people or internal people. Okay, most definitely internal people in this case. When we try to control others, we're making a withdrawal. So force, coercion, manipulation, and emotional abuse, basically. And any other kind of abuse becomes a withdrawal. It's not a negative withdrawal, it's a withdrawal, but, a negative transaction against that positive balance. If that positive balance comes to zero, and it's not a numerical balance, we're not going to sit there and saying, well, you sent me a thank you note, that's plus 10. No. We don't need to make numbers to go with this. It's just, it is either a positive balance and you have goodwill between you, or you have a negative balance. If you've made too many withdrawals, asked for too many favors, manipulated, cajoled, etc. So some people won't consider certain favors even to be a withdrawal. Some people are like, that's what friends do, and that's not a withdrawal. But sometimes you do ask people to go above and beyond. Like, if I were to ask a friend to help me move from my apartment, that would be above and beyond. Carrying my furniture, possibly risking your body, exhausting yourself, spending 8 hours, doing menial labor and, well, not menial, but, physical labor and tasks. That would be, to me, that would be on the extreme withdrawal side of things. I would feel on my end of this that my balance with them would be low, and they might think it's higher than I think it. We don't have to see equally on this. But anyway, so this is like a Stephen Covey concept. I don't know if he made it up or if he found it from somebody else, but the idea that there is this emotional bank account and that we're constantly having transactions with the people closest to us, the people that we influence and so on, is a Stephen Covey thing. 7 Habits. Social capital is related. This bank account, this positive balance, it can be the same thing. Can, to some degree. So there can be transactions, favors, and requests and things like that are purely social capital. So these are almost the same thing, almost, except this is like usually personal relationships, where social capital is usually, but not always, business relationships. So I know a lot of people in the business industry, that are small business owners, but this one person, they're a producer. They produce theater shows and radio broadcasts and things like that. So they're a producer. They're also a scriptwriter and director and so on. They are very, very adept at building and transacting social capital. They amass favors. They'll connect people with each other and stuff like that. So they'll build up goodwill. They'll build up a good, social bank account or emotional bank account. And then when they need something done, all they do is go through their mental Rolodex, figure out who, I don't want to say owes them, but who has such goodwill towards them that they would do the thing without even thinking about it, makes a phone call, hey, blah, 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 I need blah, 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 blah. can you, this, that, and the other thing? And they're like, sure. And he's like, thank you so much, blah, blah, blah. Hangs up the phone, and whatever it is, it's going to get done. So that person has a high social capital transaction, I don't know, social capital Q. So social capital transactional nature, where rather than monetary currency, this person is dealing in social currency. So it's a very similar concept. So when you are working within your sphere of influence, you may be constantly making these deposits and withdrawals from these kinds of accounts. You may be building up, I guess social capital in some way is kind of like a credit card for emotional bank accounts, or a withdrawal, like a debit card or something. But, it's like you can owe somebody something. So you can like transact with people socially before they even have the goodwill and owe them later. But it's more detached. This is more professional. At least to me. We'll put it in quotes. It's basically the same thing, but it's taken less personally when it's social capital. Where the emotional bank account is usually very intimate. It's your friends, it's your lover, it's your kids, it's your parents. Like, this is like really the personal relationships. These are family, friends, maybe coworkers, like your closest associates or your closest influence category, where these may be acquaintances, where the relationship isn't as personal, if that makes sense. Favors. Yeah. So that's that. This may help you with headmates. So in terms of headmates, this would be like if you are an officer or crew, this would be officers and crew. Versus maybe passengers and stowaways and rebels. Maybe. You can be either one, but I'm just giving some general guidelines here. So your co-conscious people and the maybe not so co-conscious or not close to you, not in agreement with you types of people could be on this side. Rebels may be antagonistic in the first place because you're antithetical to each other, that you have like different beliefs, so different that you can't have a meeting of the minds. They may be the goody two-shoes of their world and you might be the rebel and so on. But, that matters. Just like there may be headmates that are resistant. There we go, resistant to social capital. Like, who are you to tell me to, or whatever. Okay, now that was an extra 10 minutes just for that. But we filled our promise to talk about it. Okay, yeah, that's it. So we will leave a worksheet if you want to do this exercise between you and maybe your headmates, is to write down all the things that you're concerned about. You might want to make like different colored pens for different people or something if you're going to use a 3-circle version. I have not yet figured out how to do this in a way that the map makes sense for plurals. Maybe something like this, where you kind of Venn diagram people in your head and then do a circle of influence for your body. Like, this would be your body and all the people in it. Circle of influence, circle of concern. I mean, I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet. Because you have more than one circle of control between the lot of you. But really, technically, each of you has your own separate 3-circle thing. You can see why I didn't draw that by hand. You're all really separate, but because you're sharing the same body, these things may overlap. So, like, why bother be redundant? Have a great day. Bye.